Welcome to Ryan's Running Reviews in partnership with Roadrunner Sports, and today we're taking a look at the completely redesigned Saucony Ride 17. Let's run with it. Before we get started, I do want to say these shoes were provided to me by Roadrunner Sports. However, no one had a chance to preview this video, and this file synopsis is my own. I'd also like to say please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. Here we go. If you're not familiar with the Saucony running shoe lineup, the Ride series is their classic, conventional, neutral daily trainer, kind of designed to handle a wide variety of runs. If you need the stability version of the Ride, you can take a look at the guide. If you want a little bit more cushion, you can go up to something like the Triumph 21. Honestly, the Ride and the Triumph have become very similar this year. I do expect the Triumph 21 to get a massive upgrade, but they share some very close similarities right now. The price remains unchanged from last year. It's still that $140 price point. And the stack height is also identical to last year with 35 millimeters in the heel, 27 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. The weight did increase by a substantial margin this year. Last year, the shoe was rather light at 8.8 ounces. And this year we go up by 1.1 ounces, now bringing us to 9.9, which isn't heavy, but it's definitely not on the light end either. So we get a kind of more average weighing daily trainer. And a big reason for that is the midsole foam, which I will talk about here in a second. The upper is a very breathable engineered mesh. I quite like it. It does fit true to size, and I thought it was rather accommodating, plenty of room in the toe box and midfoot. Now, the big change here with the upper is we no longer have those ribbon cables on the top part of the lacing system that would kind of go along the midfoot. Instead, they opted for kind of this heavy plastic synthetic overlay on both the lateral side and medial side of the upper, which gives you an extra layer of support. Personally, I think the upper works quite well, incredibly breathable. You have a moderate amount of padding in the heel counter with more of a U shape rather than a V, but the lockdown was fine. Feels very much like a Saucony upper, if you will. The tongue is lightly padded. I think it walks the line quite nicely. It's not too big and it's not too thin, and is gusseted with strips of fabric, again, on both the lateral and medial side to keep it in place. I'm quite happy with the upper here. I think it works quite well. I don't know if I absolutely love kind of these large plastic overlays in the way that they look, but as far as the function goes, I think they do their job, and they give you plenty of ventilation, as you can basically see directly through them to basically where your sock is. So excellent airflow, great fit, and I'm actually quite happy with what they did on the upper. Not like a massive difference from last year, other than kind of getting rid of those ribbon cables and kind of paring down the tongue, but I do think it works quite well here on this 17th version. There is one small change on the lacing system that I do want to talk about. It's not a massive difference, but it is rather unique. Most running shoes, the lacing will go through the upper and kind of loops around, and then when you pull it tight, it pulls the upper together. However, here on the Ride 17, you basically have two strands of fabric or string that go down the length of the shoe, and that is stitched to the upper. So the laces interact with that extra piece of rope on the outside and then kind of pull the upper together instead of going through the upper. So basically you have an external lacing frame system, if you will. That's what I'm going to call it. I think it works quite well, but it is a different setup compared to most conventional lacing operations. And now for the midsole, because this is one of the sole reasons, pun intended, of why this shoe gained over an ounce in weight compared to last year. Now, the midsole foam is updated to Power Run Plus, the same kind of foam we see on the Triumph 21. The big difference, however, is the Triumph 21 has 2 more millimeters of stack height and a 10 millimeter drop compared to the 8 millimeter drop we have here on the Ride 17. I'll also say, in my personal experience, the Triumph 21 feels slightly softer and bouncier, so I'm not sure if it's exactly the same formulation of Power Run Plus, but I will say I think the Ride 17 kind of feels like a slightly toned down version of the Triumph 21. Now, compared the Ride 17 to last year's Ride 16, the Ride 16 had Power Run foam, which is an EVA-based foam, much firmer and also much lighter. This year, we have a softer Power Run Plus, which is a TPU-based foam. So you're going to have a little bit more squish and energy return. And this type of foam, or the Power Run Plus, is also going to be more durable compared to the Power Run or EVA foam we saw last year on the Ride 16. Just like last year, we do have a Power Run Plus insert, which means the insert is made of the same material that the midsole is. So kind of a nice touch. It's not super noticeable, but it is nice to have some customization options. So if you want to take this Power Run Plus insert and put it in one of your other running shoes for some added comfort, you can do that, because I will say this insert is a little bit more dense and squishy compared to the conventional insert we see from most other running shoes. So how does this update perform? Well, honestly, it feels like a toned down Triumph 21. The Triumph 21 has 2 more millimeters of stack height and weighs about the same as the Ride 17. I think part of the reason for that is the Ride 17, even though it has less stack height, has a wider forefoot and heel area. So you are going to get a wider base here. And I do think the Ride is going to be a slightly more stable option compared to the Triumph 21. However, if we compare it to last year's Ride 16 feels significantly firmer and significantly lighter compared to this version. And I also do think that last year's version feels more stable as well. So it depends on what you're looking for. If you're someone who likes the Triumph, needs a little bit less cushioning, or needs a slightly more stable option without having to go to a stability shoe, I think the Ride will be right up your alley. Now, if you're someone who liked last year's slightly firmer Ride and extremely lightweight, you might be a little bit disappointed by this update, just because it does feel significantly softer and bouncier. Now, if we compare it to like Power Run PB, I don't think this is the most energetic foam in the world. Power Run PB is what we see on Saucony's, I think it's like the Speed 3 in their Pro lineup. And I do think that has a lot more energy return, and in my opinion is a little bit more fun compared to Power Run Plus. Moving on to the outsole, we have tons of rubber coverage here, a lot more surface area compared to most other daily training options. And I will say, I think the rubber towards the forefoot does stiffen things up a little bit, although I will say this is a rather flexible shoe. It's not the most stiff and rigid. So overall, Saucony completely changed the ride of the Ride 17 by making it both softer and heavier compared to the previous 2 versions, and essentially makes this the younger sibling to the Triumph 21. Now, personally, would I would have liked to see Power Run PB in the midsole for a super energetic and soft experience? Absolutely, but I think Saucony did this because the Ride is, again, they're more conventional, traditional, neutral daily trainer, and a lot of walkers and people who just need a casual shoe pick this up as well. So this kind of sits in the more kind of broad appeal category, which is why I think they went with Power Run Plus, which I think is more durable as it's TPU based compared to EVA materials, which again is what we saw on the Ride 15 and 16. So whether this is a good or bad update, I think kind of depends on your preference, because I know a lot of people really liked the previous 2 rides, even though they were a bit firmer. And I think some people really like this, especially if you're someone who likes the Triumph but needs something a little bit more kind of pared down, if you will. Well, that concludes the review. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this update and the direction that Saucony is going with their midsoles. I would love to hear from you.